I've been in the business for about 20 years. And I started out as a music critic, and then I started covering social justice movements as a columnist, as a culture critic. And in 2020, it was nothing new to me to cover the murder of an unarmed Black man, but it had been just so many years of me covering that. I wondered how many times I was going to write about dead Black bodies and why we didn't celebrate Black life. So I went to my editor and said, I'm gonna create a space to love on us, to be tender with us, and to remind people that we're worth it while we're here, not just as a hashtag. So A Beautiful Resistance is really about celebrating Black joy. It's really about celebrating Black dreams and Black possibilities. And our panel today is gonna be very much about Black womanhood and Black girlhood. The episode you started to watch is from season 2. And I think Portia and Crystal do a really good job at making space for Black love and Black personhood. I'm gonna start the panel. If we have time at the end, we'll watch the episodes. If we don't, I would so love it if you find us at globe.com/A Beautiful Resistance. You all have these beautiful handbills, and it has all the information on there. You can see the episodes that have already aired and be prepared for season 3, which is coming soon. But in the meantime, in between time, we gonna do what Black women do and keep it moving and keep it beautiful and bold and strong. So my first panelist that I wanna invite to the stage is Adrianne C. Smith, who is the founder of Con Diversity Collective and SVP and Senior Partner, Chief Diversity Inclusion Officer at Fleshman Hillard, and the founder of Vision Corp's Media Group. Please give it up for Adrianne and thank her so much for being in community with us this morning. My next guest, I feel so happy because I feel like I've spent the week with, in many ways, seeing her beautiful face, and is Ingrid Best of IBest Wines. We're not pouring today because it's against the rules, but I do want you to see just how beautiful these wines are. Like, this is beautiful. This is A Beautiful Resistance. Ingrid's gonna talk more at length. She is the CEO, founder, and négociant. Did I say that right? Look at me getting things right. Of IBest Wines, and really a marketing mastermind. She is one of the reasons why LVMH was experiencing growth year after year at unprecedented rates. So, you know, between these two women and the third one that's about to come up, we are really sitting with excellence and legacy. I now want to bring my sister, Dr. Makeeba McCreary, to, there she is, looking all fine and green. Makeeba is a powerhouse. All three of these women, it would take me all day to actually go down their resumes, but Makeeba is the president of New Commonwealth Fund. It is an equity and social justice fund disrupting do-gooder groups, philanthropy groups who often say that they want to give back to communities and make the world better, but they create a lot of barriers, specifically for Black and brown folks to access the money. And Makeeba and NCF really disrupt that. They do the work to make sure money is being given away to Black and brown organizations and Black and brown creatives. And we're gonna get into this. So we're gonna ground ourselves and really ground me in joy. I wanna start by asking each of you what Black joy means to you. And I'll start with you, Ingrid.
Well, happy Monday. It's really good to be here. And I'm so honored to be sitting amongst you beautiful women, powerful women, leaders, and just good energy. And I love how you took that pivot, little technical difficulties, but we just got right into it. because you really set the energy for this morning. So really good to be here. Thank you all for coming. And for me, this is Black joy. It's just sitting in an energy that you choose for yourself and an energy that you choose to give others. And I wake up every morning asking for my joy to be intact so that I can share it with the world. So for me, it's a choice. It's a state of mind. And it's probably what I'm most grateful for, is the ability to be joyful in the midst of. Yeah.
Makeeba.
Good morning, everybody. I think that it's so easy to be joyful right now because we just don't get this opportunity. So first, thank you, Jeneé, for having us come together and sit on the stage in this space. I think I'm going to take a moment to answer this question because I'm actually in a moment myself. You know, I have clarity. Black joy is when Ingrid reaches out randomly last week and says, "Hey, sis, I want to figure out a way for us to do something together." Like, that is incredible. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit later, but unfortunately, it doesn't happen enough for all of us. It's my son texting me from the ferry because he actually left Boston and said he's going to come and spend a little bit of time with me. Like, that brings me a lot of Black joy. I would say Black joy is my incredible partner who's in the audience, who got me some eggs on the way here.
Hey, Sandy.
To make sure I survive the rest of the day. That is definitely joyful. And yesterday we had an opportunity to host some folks on a panel, and one of them was a friend of mine, April Holmes. She's a Paralympian, and I just take a moment to say that she lost her leg under a train in an accident. She was already an incredible athlete. She was performing at her peak, and a train came and literally took off the bottom half of her leg, and she talks about. And then she went on to be a gold Olympian, medalist many times over. She talks about remembering the moment that of the train, like every single time she has to make decisions about what's important. And so I just want to say, like, this for me, this moment right now is going to be a train moment for me moving forward. That's going to be my Black joy for a while.
Absolutely. She talks about making those snowballs and singing those songs, and that definitely resonated with me. Adrianne?
Okay. What brings me joy, to both of your points, or everything you've said and more, when people lean in and say yes. And so normally when I find myself with a beautiful group of people, I ask them to go through this ritual with me, and that is, on the count of 3, everyone under the sound of my voice, say yes. 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
That was soft and cute. But we're on the vineyard, so maybe my voice needs to raise a little more. But on the count of 3, everyone under the sound of my voice, so that people can hear you all the way over to Inkwell, say yes. 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. Now let me tell you what you've agreed to, okay? But you've agreed to just taking the moment to saying yes to yourself. Yes, when you wake up in the morning, to do whatever it is that your gift, your God-given gift, has meant for you to do, and finding out what that means to you. I had the opportunity to understand why a lot of my faults had started turning into favor. And it's because I just stopped worrying about what everyone else was doing or what everyone else thought about what I was doing, and just lived in my passion and what I was meant to be here for. I always say life is a gift of experience, and just figuring out what we can do to help that next generation as it relates to succession planning. So, because I know we're not going to be here forever, but who's coming after us is so important. So just leaning into the moment of yes, every day brings me joy.
Beautiful. When I first started doing A Beautiful Resistance, people would always ask me, "What do you mean Black joy? What makes Black joy Black?" And I would say Black joy is Black because even in impossible circumstances, our ancestors always cultivated joy. Even in impossible circumstances, they understood what it meant, the power that it meant to collectively gather in song and dance and laughter, and that if you can choose joy, then you can choose hope, and that leads to possibilities. So that to me is Black joy. I'm always so delighted whenever we gather in sisterhood, because to Makeeba's point, sometimes it just doesn't happen enough. Do you feel like people say support Black women and protect Black women, but don't often actually do it in verbs and actions? What does support look like to you? What does protection look like to you? Adrianne, I'm gonna start with you because your voice is like a song.
How real can we get in the conversation? Like,
This is a real space.
So-
I only do authenticity.
to your first question about do we believe in it? In my core, I do, but do I experience it all the time? No. And it's sometimes more painful when it comes from other Black women who don't lean in, or when they do, something flips. I don't know what it is, or maybe I do know what it is. And they're not there for you the way they leaned in. So I always say everybody who starts with you is not gonna finish with you. So we have to be very careful about the people we pull in our circles, and just keep your mind open and be willing to pivot away without holding the pain on what just happened to me because my sister did something to me. And I've learned to just take that moment and realize that sometimes a vision that I have isn't everyone else's vision for me or with me, and letting that go. But there are other people around you who will support and lean in and just make a movement happen. So that looks like people talking behind your back, but in a good way, right? When you're not in the room, and they call that sponsorship a lot of times, where people will talk and say your name when you're not in the room, that will elevate you to make something happen. Like we didn't know each other. Somebody was talking behind my back to you that made you invite me to this table. So that looks like that sisterhood and supporting Black women of, saying, oh my God, you guys look so beautiful. Those sneakers are fire. I don't know, seeing you in the streets, right? That is that support. Just little things that you don't know what's happening to a woman in a space or place, but just saying, girlfriend, your smile is so beautiful. Good to see you. I'm on my way. I can't talk, but I gotta go. But you look good. Just things like that that just lift someone up. You don't lift someone up in a moment. You don't even have to engage or offer $1 million support. Although if there's anyone who wants to give me, but just like those simple things like that, I think are good because we're self-sustainers sometimes, and all we need is just a word. So that. People talking behind my back in a good way and just giving a kind word whenever you see anyone, I think it's helpful.
Listen, humans are flawed. And I think a lot of times because as Black and brown folks, we are dealing with so many things that we want to believe everyone that looks like us is for us. But we have to remember we are human and we are flawed. There are a lot of flaws that we're all navigating through. So no, the support isn't always there, but I feel very supported because I just choose to focus my energy on my time where I know the support is real and where I can extend my support because it's a two-way street. And, I was talking to a friend a few years ago, and she randomly called me because her daughter was going to a big festival, and she was nervous. She said, she's 16, I want to let her go. Who's going to be there that could protect my daughter? And she did not know me. She knew someone who knew me. They knew I was sponsoring this festival, and they put us in touch, and I said, I got your daughter. My team will make sure your daughter is with us the entire day. We will get her to and from her car and she will be okay. And she said, I believe in this underground railroad that Black women have, and we have it. And so I choose to exist in that space. And so I do feel very supported, and I'm very intentional with support. You can call me, I don't know you, and feel safe that your child would be okay at a festival with me and my team. So, I like to just focus on what we do have and what we don't, rather than what we don't have. And again, remembering that we are human and we are flawed and there are things and there's stuff, but I try just not to give that too much of my energy. I'm too busy trying to support folks and be supported. So that's where I really focus my energy and my time.
Building on where you left off, Ingrid, I really am in a place right now in my own journey where I have to recognize that part of the responsibility, a big part of the responsibility, is for me to be able to receive. And that is maybe harder than any other thing that I have really had to practice, because I have spent so much time doing the other thing, which is offering the support and really caring for myself. And when you start to ask the question, what does it look like? And my first response is, I have no idea. But then I have to be accountable for that and say, or is it that when it does come along, maybe it's not every day, all day, forever, but when it does come, am I open to receiving that? And the answer is not always. I have not always been. And so I guess I would just offer that to, the other sisters in the room, that, I think we do a really good job of building up the exterior to necessarily to take care of ourselves and the people around us, but that same wall then does prohibit us from being able to being open to being cared for. And that is just so critical. It's really a matter of our health, our wellness. And so I think we have to reverse that practice also.
I definitely think a lot, myself included, a lot of us suffer from I got it. And it's not just I got it, it's I got it and I'll give it. So it's like, we got it, we'll take care of everything for ourselves, and we'll give it all to everybody else. But we don't do a lot of asking for help and pulling out chairs so people can sit at our table. But one thing that I have really learned, and beyond support, is what it looks like to believe in yourself. And each of you have had to kind of have what I call extraordinary belief. When you take a leap on self and build something new or do something new, can you share a little bit about what you used to do and how you came to do what you do now, so the good people can learn about your work and the power of belief and what it takes to take that leap? Because a lot of people don't think they have a second act in them, and they end up spending their life doing things that maybe they used to love, but they're tired of doing.
You're looking at me, so I think you're talking about. So I started many years ago in the late 1900s working in the advertising and marketing business. And then I would find myself always working for entrepreneurs. And sometimes the entrepreneurs weren't always the brightest or smartest people, but they had brilliant concepts, right? So being able to lean in and help support, and I take that back, no, they were brilliant, but they were missing like a people skill or something like that to be able to build relationships. And one of the things that I always say is relationship currency is better than sometimes the money currency, right? And you always have to be careful about who you're around, what you're saying when you're with people, especially servers sometimes, because they are listening to everything you say. And if you're a good person, they will protect you in every moment. So I say all that because a lot of things that I do now have nothing to do with my skill set, but more about the relationships that I've had and people who've supported and leaned in. So if we talk about where I am now as the founder of the CAN Diversity Collective, and I'm saying CAN Diversity Collective, where we started the CAN, CANNES, CAN Diversity Collective, came out of relationship building. I went to this festival in 2017 as a voyeur with my friend Love Malone, and it's her fault. If you ever see her, just say it's your fault, and she'll laugh. She'll know why. But because of that relationship and just seeing that this festival, that's like the Oscars of the advertising industry, over 20,000 people attend, but only that year, 2017, only 200 look like us. 20,200. But it was the place where all of the creators go to celebrate their work, make magic happen. And if you walk down the Quasset and you close your eyes and you heard the music, you would think, oh yes, we're here, our culture is here. But when you opened your eyes and you saw people dancing off beat, you're like, oh no, we're not here, right? But that year they were talking about how could the festival be more inclusive. I thought as a voyeur, you have to just bring people there. You have to let us know that this festival exists. So I started as a voyeur, then the next year bringing young people to come to the festival. That year I didn't have a job. I wasn't working for anybody. There was not a brand name attached to my back, like a company, you know. It was just me. It was just Adrianne. And when I came back to the States and told a few people what I wanted to do, they were like, my company will support that. Sight unseen, nothing new, just an idea and the relationship that we had built. So that first year, we were able to bring 5 young people to the festival. Our young people are brilliant and amazing. They showed up at this festival and showed out. So much so that people were talking about them behind their backs, in a good way, saying that these Black people from America, these young Black girls from America, are killing the game. They're changing the trajectory of what happens at this festival. And, you know, who are they? And I was ear hustling, and I was like, who are you talking about, really? And they were like, Alex and Jenna, we believe. Those were 2 of the young people that I brought to the festival. So I say all this to say it had to do with relationships, and today we host the only diversity, equity, and inclusion beach activation in the history of that festival. So if you come today, it will look nothing like it looked when I came for the first time in 2017. Like, more people are there. We take young people from now 6 different continents. We've opened it up to HBCU students, but it was all about the relationships. And so that pivot for me was more about relationships and building and making sure, you know, you have an idea, you're able to get support from it, and just staying true to that vision I think we talked about, which was changing and creating space for other folks to participate and have access. I don't know if I answered the question, but the ramble just kept going and I couldn't stop it.
It was beautiful, and we learned about where you're at now.
Yes. And we've also done it just, you know, saying yes to yourself, back to that yes thing experience. We've also now expanded the conversation to Davos, to the World Economic Forum, right? And that's a place that's typically whiter than the whitest snow that's there, but now we created a space for us to come. And a part of saying yes to yourself is thinking that you belong where they say you don't belong. Not thinking it, but knowing you do. And not waiting for an invitation or permission to go. Just go. Now it's like, you know, coming to the vineyard. We're all here. Now start coming to Cannes. We're all there. Start going to Davos during the World Economic Forum. Yes, it is in January and it is cold, but we are there. We hosted Inkwell Beach Davos there. We host Inkwell Beach Cannes. We're going to go to Singapore. We're going to go wherever they don't see us, because we have to show up so they see us in the human face-to-face light versus the perception of TikTok and now AI that can shift your messaging and shift your images. But when you're in the flesh, they're meeting you real time and the perception shifts. So it's important for us to just keep going in these spaces and do that.
Absolutely. Ingrid?
Whew.
I didn't mean to take up so much
sermon.
time.
No, we needed that. We needed those words.
Good, yeah, because a lot of what you were saying I can relate to. So I've been in the wine and spirits business for over 20 years. When I started at my first supplier, Diageo, I remember I was a manager, and the only other 2 Black folks that I saw was the young man in the mailroom and the receptionist. And I remember how that felt. and thinking, whoa, you know, like this is crazy. Especially because the portfolio, the brand of portfolio, the brands in their portfolio, the consumer looks like us. So for me, it was so jarring, you know, and that stuck with me. And 3 years ago, after, you know, having an incredible career, working at LVMH, working on Hennessy, working on the revitalization of Belvedere, working on the joint venture between Sean Carter and Bacardi, working on a joint venture for Diageo on Ciroc and De Leon, I remember the aha moment, and I said, I've worked for 3 of the largest suppliers in the world, and I'm gonna be one too. And so now I am considered a supplier, and I launched my own namesake brand October of 2023. We're just shy of a year old. And my why was really like, I can be that too, you know, and I have to be that too, right? And I tapped 5 other Black women, many of whom I had met along my journey in the business. I love being a mentor. So a few of them were my mentees, who then also introduced me to people in their network. And so the 5 of us went on this beautiful journey to build and launch IBest Wines, which is my namesake wine brand. And I decided to launch wine from South Africa. And the reason why I did that is because South Africa's been making wine for over 300 years, but here in the US, you wouldn't know. All over the world, they celebrate the South African wine region, but we're late to the party. And I have my hunch as to why. And so in pure, you know, I say Ingrid fashion, I always want to do the disruptive thing, you know, and I believe that I'm a global citizen. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm launching a brand from South Africa. And people always say, why? Why did you choose South Africa? Because I'm from the Bay Area. I could have launched a wine from Napa. But my answer is always, why not? And so here's this beautiful brand that is rooted in South Africa, that's giving 5 other Black women an opportunity to be brand owners and equity owners. And now when I walk into wine shops and restaurants, my brand is sitting right next to the brands that I worked really hard to sell and promote that I never got an ounce in equity from. And so for me, this is a story of equity, disruption, mentorship for the women who believed in this dream. And it's also a story around us tapping back into the continent. You know, my superpower was unlocked when I got to Africa. And I now have a beautiful community there and a village there who have given me their blessing to launch a wine from South Africa. And we're just getting started, you know, and I look forward to working with you. We got to talk. And it's really been one of the most beautiful moments of my life. It's hard work, it's hard, but it's absolutely beautiful. So
Thank
that's
you.
my story.
It's a beautiful story.
I think everybody just learned what they needed to know about, you know, how to pivot and how to trust and believe in yourself. I think the only thing I can offer is that when people ask me how I traveled my road, it's been a windy path. And it makes a lot of sense if you understand 2 things, which is relationships really matter. And I say that to young people who come to me all the time. Like, generationally, I don't know if it's starting to sort of fade in terms of the amount of importance that carries. Maybe it's the phones and the technology and the face-to-face sort of, but the relationships that I have built over the years have done everything for me, including giving me opportunities to say yes. And so those are, I think, the things that I ground my worlds in. And so it's taken me from being an actress in New York to fast forward working for Jordan Brand, running their philanthropy, to fast forward being a chief of staff in a city government, to running a fund for racial equity that is statewide and shooting towards $100 million, to sitting on stage with these three beautiful women, and yesterday actually was a testament to that, because actually everybody on stage in many ways represented a different decade in my journey. And it was because I was able to say, like, can you please come and be a part of this conversation, that we were all together. And it was a great moment to remind me that yes, and relationships. Yeah.
Thank you. Makeeba, I want to stay with you for a second. And I do think it's beautiful the way we're able to all support each other as Black women, even if it doesn't happen all the time. But with funding right now, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're in philanthropy or the nonprofit sector, or you're like me and just trying to fund an equity pipeline for journalism, it's under attack. If the words equity are attached, if the word Black is attached, if the word woman is attached, queer, anything that is marginalized or otherized in the American world of whiteness, and whiteness as a power structure, not as a individual people, is currently under attack. And we saw what happened with Fearless Fund. And I know I've been in conversations where I talk about this equity pipeline I'm trying to build. And, I have white kids who are coming from very privileged lives applying for this fellowship that was built for people of color. And we're seeing people get sued for these things. So how are you all grappling with the funding side of your work? And I'll start with you.
Sure. So I think the first thing that I would posit is, and maybe it's because I'm from Boston, so this is easier for me. Everybody comes to Boston who's Black and they say, this is a very strange city. And I say, that's right. That's because, you know what? White people here will say to your face that they, are racist, as opposed to other cities where, it's the opposite. In Boston, they won't say it to your face. You go to other cities and it's really blatant. In Boston, you got to figure out what it is that's coming at you. And so if you're from there, you become really practiced in that sort of just like knowing what you're dealing with. Jeneé, yes, we are under attack. It's really blatant, but I'm gonna actually release us from this being a moment and say, we are always under attack. It is always a moment. Before 2020, there were 2% of philanthropic dollars were going to Black and brown-led organizations. That's the same thing that happened in 2023, 2024. There were, $2 billion were pledged in 2020 at the grave of Mr. Floyd to respond to the state of affairs across the country. There's no accountability for how many of those dollars were actually released. Okay, those were press releases about what was promised. So, there's, as soon as the Supreme Court makes a statement and says affirmative action can be, pushed aside, it gives permission to one singular white man to take two Black women to court, waste their time for 2 years so that they run out of money. Like, that's my estimation of Fearless Fund. That's what happened, is he wasted their time because the courts gave him permission to do that. And they ran out of money. And they weren't able then to do good. The good thing that they were getting ready to do, which is simply reinvest in other brilliant, genius Black and brown women. I think the real question is, why is that so threatening? Right? Like, why does that evoke such a powerful response, such that somebody is willing to invest 2 years to shut it down?
Because Black genius will lead us to liberation. And they know the power of possibility. And when we believe in ourselves and we gather with the purpose of making our dreams come true, then that is a threat to their power, because everybody pretends that they want equity, but in order to have true equity, some people have to release power. And when they see us gaining power and striving towards equity, which would lead to liberation, that is the threat, which is why they start to ban even the books, because how dare you dream? It's why when we go to war, they destroy people's art and their history and their stories, because they want to take away your genius and your dreams.
And I'll say just really quickly, and then I'm going to pass the torch, is it's not a loss. Like, I am convinced that white people are not losing anything. When I'm in rooms and I'm trying to, help a room of 50 people understand why they should give to a fund that's shooting to $100 million, I inevitably get the question, well, you don't think that white people also deserve an investment? Like, why do you just invest in black and brown? And I say, well, first of all, we're not exclusive. But second of all, yes, we do prioritize. And let me tell you why. Here's a great example. In 2020, Chelsea had the highest rate of COVID of any city in the country. And one Latina woman, Gladys, runs a nonprofit organization that pivoted like 6 times in 6 weeks to respond to what her community needed. She went from being a youth serving organization to a soup kitchen, to a daycare, to a workforce generating organization. It took her less than 18 months, a bunch of arguments with the mayor. She was not playing. She came back with $1 million+ of ARPA money, and Chelsea actually became the city in the country with the lowest incidence of COVID in the country. So what I say to those rooms is, tell me that every white nonprofit leader in Massachusetts doesn't want her at her best, doesn't want her at her full genius. Why would they want her suffering? They want her right up next to her. So, Jonathan is gonna give up a little bit of his, just a little bit, in order for Gladys to do her thing. And that's what I think we have to really wrestle with, is the fact that A, we're a significant threat, and B, it's because there's just this tremendous amount of fear around loss, a loss that is actually perceived, not real.
I would say a couple of things that tag along to what you were saying. A big part of it is about the storytelling of it and the narrative around it. So by them attacking the Fearless Fund, the optics of it and the optics of the Supreme Court shutting down affirmative action, for me, that was like a gateway drug that gave permission, to your point, for everybody to pull back. When in reality, and that was like a scare tactic, that if you support the Fearless Fund, now everything gets shut down. But it's all about the storytelling and how we storytell about it. There's a saying, an organized lie is better than the disorganized truth, right? And right now they've got the organized lie rolling, like DEI is dead, DEI is bad, DEI is black. DEI, the DEI mayor caused the bridge to collapse. DEI was the reason the president got shot. There are so many negative narratives going on that we have to shift it. And my thing is, don't believe the hype. DEI will never die, right? Because DEI is a human connection business. If you think about what DEI does, it's about how we as human beings connect with each other and support each other. And what I do is I storytell about supporting the least of these really is what lifts us all up. And I use a simple example of when you walk down the sidewalk, all of us have walked down the sidewalk, all of us have seen that dip when you're stepping into the street. It's a cut curved area, right? The cut curved area, which was a law that was passed in California, was to help people with disabilities gain access to the sidewalk, right? It wasn't created for cisgender white men to do whatever it was created so that people with disabilities would gain access to the sidewalk. But not only do they gain access, but women pushing grocery carts gain access. People pushing baby carriages gain access. You're riding a bike, you get access. Now you've helped an entire community of people who now have access for something that was not created for them. So what they're saying when they say, let's kill DEI, they want to stop access for everybody. So that's why I cannot die and will not die, but we have to shift the benefits of the story and take the stigma off of it from being just a black thing to it's helping all of us. Yes, we benefit, but when you help us, it rises, right? We spend a ton of money, right? Why take away our ability to buy it, and then now you can't even spend, or make money when now you can't spend the money that helps all of these economies. So I think, I don't know if it answers the question, but a point about DEI and the negativity around it, we have the power to shift the narrative and don't believe the hype. They got us twisted in thinking we can't say it. Say it loud. And as a matter of fact, I am a DEI hire. And if the president of your organization isn't a DEI hire, that means they don't believe in building the economic status of their company. It doesn't mean they want to find great talent. It means that they don't understand that by having a diverse community of people with diverse thinking, diverse backgrounds, that's not going to help benefit the growth of their organization. So I push back on the narrative that DEI is the fall for everything, when actually it is what that growth opportunity is for an organization.
I just want to chime in and say there's also, I think, this inherent stigma when you're talking about DEI. I think I look at myself and my business, I invested my own capital to start and launch IBest Wines. And the raise started with friends who said, listen, we know you, we know what you're about to do. We want to be a part of your friends and family raise. And I am now in my pre-seed, and I'm learning so much as an entrepreneur about that process. But I can tell you, I think that there is this stigma that the only one that would be benefiting from DEI is like the undeserving, right? There's also that, like, why would we be giving money to people who maybe don't deserve to get the money, or don't have the accolades to get the money, or don't have the ideas? I've heard some wild things about, why you shouldn't hire DE&I. Like, there's this inherent belief that that all the things that are required, for instance, in the 5 Black women who help build IBest Wines, they are all tremendous business women. That's what they are first. And then second, they're Black women. And so even in the case of myself raising capital for IBest Wines, I think people make this assumption, here's this woman, she had this tremendous career, it's going to be easy for her to raise. It has been damn hard. And so I need all those programs to stay intact, because although I may have started 10 feet ahead of someone else, the reality is I'm still a Black woman. And it is very, very hard for us to raise capital. And if we didn't have those programs, we didn't have leadership that was helping us protect those programs, I will be honest, brands like IBest Wines would not be able to scale and to become profitable businesses, a profitable business. And if we can't close the wealth gap, there's a lot of things we won't be able to do. So I think there is also just this inherent stigma about what exactly it is we're talking about. And I'm a testament, and I'd love to be a case study for what it is we're talking about and why it's so necessary, and why we have to protect it, and why we have to quiet the noise, the fake news. It's a lot of fake news around what it really means. And at the end of the day, we have to close the wealth gap.
We have to close the wealth gap, and we have to just start critically thinking, because there's only organized lies and fake news, because anything that comes across a timeline is now perceived as truth. And people just eat it up like pudding and regurgitate it as such. And then if they don't agree with something that is a fact, they now just call it a lie without even bothering to see if it's a lie, because they just don't agree with it. And I just say that as a journalist, because I'm constantly seeing people call things fake news when it's like verified research, just because they don't agree with it, and it's become a dangerous thing. But I've gone off on a tangent. Sorry,
This is girl talk.
Fake
It's
news
like
is a
we're just
trigger
talking.
for me. We're in an election year, and you seeing fake news actually just leads us right there. We are in an election year, and whether I'm not interested in talking about whether people are a fan of Kamala or not. What I am interested in is recognizing that there is a distinct misogynoir around her. There is a distinct attack around her because she is both Black and woman. She is both Black and South Asian, and it is coming with a level of threat and targeting that is very specific to us as Black women. And I just want to hold space for what's at stake and what we're all thinking this election year, like how we're feeling, how we're going to fight forward to prevent a very absurd, obscene, and offensive candidate that I cannot believe we would even allow. I'm not shocked. I wasn't shocked the first time he became president, but I am just like, we allowed this to happen. Like, how is it's just by design that this country continues to choose the worst possible trajectories. And that doesn't mean there isn't. There's lots of hope and lots of love and lots of possibility, and I'm ready to fight. But how are you approaching this election season? What can we all be doing better to support one another and raise the level of consciousness towards voting? And I'll say to my young radicals, I'm not voting because I want to uphold imperialism or I don't know history. I'm voting because, yes, it can indeed get worse. So
I'm going to jump in. I'm keeping my energy high. And I think what happens oftentimes when you're dealing with the absurd, the blatant absurd, is sometimes your energy can go real low. And that's what we've seen. Unfortunately, we can operate at a low level or we can operate at a real high level. And we know what we can do when we operate at a high level. So my energy is high. I'm from the Bay Area. Kamala's from the Bay Area. My mother was Kamala's mother's nurse. And so there's a special tie there. And I am keeping my energy very, very high. And I intend to energize young people. They need to be energized. I've had some very concerning conversations with my son, who is 30 years old. And what I would say to anyone in this room is you need to be talking to those young people between the age of 18 and 30 and even 35, because they don't get it sometimes. Not all of them, but some of them. And so, we said we were going to be vulnerable. I had a very real conversation with my son the other day, and I said, do you understand what's happening here? Do you get it? And there were parts of it that he did not. And so I'm starting with the young people. I'm keeping myself open. I'm answering more DMs than I ever have in my life. It's not my thing, but there are young people sliding in my DMs, asking me questions, and I engage them. And then the first thing I get to is, are you voting? What do you need to know? I'm here to support you in getting yourself to the polls to vote. And so my energy is very high around this election, and I am focused on the win. I'm not focused on anything else. And so that's where I'm at this election.
I think one of the things, to your point of keeping that energy high, because it was, for me, extremely low, right, before, 2 weeks ago, because it was a desperate need of now what? Because our future is at stake. Our young people, whatever they're doing. And so engaging them, to your point, is a critical part, because it's for them, really. The future is for them. And, our only Black job right now is to vote, right? Like 100%.
One Black job.
You got one Black job right now. Don't get fired, right? You got to vote. So we encouraging young people to vote, just be in the game, be aware of the stakes from the top all the way down to your local elections is a critical part, because that shifts the decisions for judges. We know kind of the path that it takes all the way to the top. And I'm hopeful, in the spirit of keeping that energy up. Just now more people are talking about it. They're not dismissing what they see. And, we see a lot right now. We hear a lot, and hopefully we can just encourage people just to be very thoughtful and mindful of the decisions that we make, because the future of our country, the future of our children, the future of the world really is at stake with this election.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm going to say one last thing. We have to meet them where they are. Some of the things that I was having to talk to my son about were very uncomfortable for me. But that's where he's at. And so we have to meet these young people where they are. If you listen to music right now and what they're talking about, it could be real uncomfortable. You have to meet them in the conversation where they are. It's the only way we're going to get them to hear us. I think a lot of us are in our little bubbles, right? You can be on your bubble here on this island, but the truth is there is a swell and a lot of conversation amongst young people that may be uncomfortable for us, but this is the moment that we got to break through and meet them exactly where they are.
Yes, and yes, I think there is one black job. There's also one white job, and I think
one job, right? There's one job.
Yes.
We have a lot of white people around us in our worlds who need to be accountable for this country also, and I think we get to hold them responsible for standing alongside us and being responsible human beings. If they want to be in a world where their children are going to be protected, because I think also important to remember the canary in the mine, right? It's one day this segment of the population that's being attacked and demeaned, and the next day it's your child who all of a sudden you realize you have a child who identifies as transgender. Whoops, guess what? You could have seen that coming. So it was okay when it was, last month and it was somebody else's other, and this month it's yours. And so I think I was at listening to Dr. Bettina Love was on a panel last week down here that I listened to her, and she said she has a white friend who is serious, and this woman, every single moment that she has an opportunity, she reminds whoever she's around, friend or stranger, of their accountability, right down to being in the post office. Someone asked for her for a pen, and she turned to them and she said, "Who are you voting for?" And she said she was not going to give up that pen until that person responded to her and said who she was voting for, and she had an opinion about that. I think that's okay. I think if we're serious, that's what we need to do.
I think not only is that what we need to do, it's being in bubbles that led us to 2016 in the first place. It was the comfort of these bubbles. And as much as I fight and will always fight to center Black joy and Black lives, we have to be about fighting for each other. We have to be like the white lady with her pen. We have to be willing to see each other as our sister and brother and sibling, because there is no liberation if someone is under. If your freedom rests on someone's neck, that's not freedom. I want to ground us. I think they're trying to get the visuals together, but we started with joy, and I like to tie up the circle with beautifully resistant. Voting is a beautiful resistance. It really is. I love my young radicals. I too was a young radical who thought I knew all things. And as you get older, you don't know nothing. But voting really is a radical act. I want to do something I did yesterday on a panel of beautiful brothers for the Disruption Dialogue for the good Dr. Makeeba McCreary. I know we're all new sisters here, but we are sisters. And instead of each person sharing what makes their life a beautiful resistance, which any of you can do, if you find Jeneé and Michaela around here with their cameras, they'll get your beautiful resistance and we'll share it. And we'll get each of yours as well. But right now, I want to take some space and just give each other our flowers. So I will start with Makeeba giving Ingrid her flowers. What makes Ingrid a beautiful resistance?
Ingrid, your beautiful resistance is your courage to decide that you are going to follow this dream that you have. and be unapologetic about why or what, and do it with so much joy and compassion and fearlessness that might not always be real, but it actually matters for those of us that are watching you. That's what you're leading with, because that's what we need to see, because it helps us when we have our fear, and that is beautiful resistance for me.
Thank you.
Ingrid, what makes Adrianne a beautiful resistance?
Whew. Thank you. Adrianne, what makes you a beautiful resistance is that you chose to go solve a problem. And that makes you a beautiful resistance. And I can feel your passion about that problem that you went to solve. And you're not done. I can tell there's a few more problems that you intend to help solve. And so thank you, because that's a selfless act. Never once when you were talking about your pivot and your why, you never really mentioned yourself. You talked about everyone else. And so thank you for your selflessness and for seeing others, taking up space for all of us. And that's a beautiful resistance.
Adrianne, what makes Makeeba a beautiful resistance?
Makeeba. So thank you, and thank you for your bravery that you shared your story about the many different lives of Makeeba that you've led without flinching, and it just flowed. And I think oftentimes we don't get the opportunity for flow because we're used to, or at least coming from parents who had one job and worked that job for 30 years. But you've lived different lives and let your light shine in different spaces, and may have motivated someone else to say, if she made a shift, then I can shift. If she can tap into a different nuance of herself, then perhaps I can do it too, with grace and dignity, and I'll use the term fearlessly, to just shine a light on everything that's possible. So I think that's your beautiful resistance, in terms of just saying, I can do whatever the hell I want to do and do it beautifully.
I want to thank all of you and all of you for living your beautiful resistance and sharing a beautiful conversation with us. Don't leave just yet, because it seems like they may have fixed our visuals.
Can I share one more story, which I think is important for everybody here?
Absolutely.
And you triggered it or inspired it because you talked about the selflessness. It literally has nothing to do with me, and I encourage everybody to do this if you have the opportunity. There's a saying that history identifies, unifies, inspires, and gives you a purpose. I had an African ancestry DNA thing done where they trace your mother's DNA. The mitochondrial DNA stays the same. You'll keep passing it on through the woman's genes. I found out that my family was from Sierra Leone, from the Mende tribe. Within the Mende tribe, there's a secret society. I see my Mende sister, okay. There's a secret society of women called Sande, S-A-N-D-E. Their purpose was to usher in the next generation. They provided the rites of passage ceremonies for their community. That's what I do. And so that's why I'm like, well, whatever it is, I have to do it. It's my calling, it's my passion. And I encourage you, if you're just wondering, what am I supposed to do? Who am I? That grounded me in what I do now and inspires me to just be able to see and help everybody grow to what they're doing. So it's just my little one tidbit that I could say. And my dad, who's Muslim, and my mom was Christian, would always say, learn your history. And all of this that we're experiencing, it won't even faze you, because we've been fighting for a long time, and the fight will continue. And the beauty of it is, you're still here, and you're still here, you're still here. We're all still here, 10 toes down for the fight. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. And what I always like to remind people is that if you woke up today, you are possible and you are enough, and we can do this again and again and again, because we have and we always will. Thank you. I love you.
Thank you.
Return to the audience. We got visuals. We got visuals. And we still got time.